Hey guys, this is Rue from Rue TV, and if you didn't know, you are watching Jammin' Music Man. So don't even think about changing that channel. Don't even come close to picking up that remote. Well, it wouldn't be a remote, it's the internet. It's like keyboard or I don't touch them. Keep it here on Jammin' Music Man, my favorite channel on YouTube.
What's up, guys? It's me, Jammin' Music Man, and welcome to my special new video. And in this video, I'm going to be reviewing one of my all-time favorite wrestling pay-per-views, WCW Halloween Havoc 1989, where I'm going to give you guys the match listings, some of the storylines for the show, and of course, whether or not I recommend you guys checking out this show or not. But the first ever Halloween Havoc took place on October 28th, 1989, and it was held at the Civic Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And of course, Philly just a few years later would become the home of Extreme Championship Wrestling. And as a little side note, there's certain shots throughout this pay-per-view where you see the legend himself, Straw Hat Guy from ECW, just jaw-jacking with some of the wrestlers. And of course, if you watch any classic ECW, you always saw the Straw Hat Guy front row, ringside at the legendary ECW arena. So you actually do see him in this crowd. And the Philly crowd, they've always been a different breed of wrestling fans. They've always liked their wrestling a little bit more wild, a little bit more crazy. But the main event for the show was built around the NWA champ, Nature Boy Ric Flair, teaming up with the oh-so-popular Sting to take on two legends, Terry Funk and the Great Muta, inside a Thunderdome cage match with another legend as the special guest referee, Bruno Sammartino. And to back up for a moment, in the early part of 1989, Flair had his trilogy of matches with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Of course, Steamboat would pick up the NWA title at Chi-Town Rumble 89, and Flair would win the title back at Wrestle War 89. And at Wrestle War 89, that's what started the whole Flair-Funk feud. Of course, Funk would pile drive Flair through a table, and Flair's broke his neck. So that's what started their whole feud, and that was in May of 89. So here we are in October of 89, and of course, it's the Halloween season. So here we are, and the pay-per-view was hosted by Jim Ross and Bob Caudle, and also on the broadcast team we got Gordon Soley and Chris Cruz doing interviews throughout the show. But the opening match for Halloween Havoc 89, it's Captain Mike Rotundo, who was the heel, taking on a babyface Z-Man Tom Zink, and the Philly crowd during this match gave the Z-Man hell. And it's kind of funny how we would see years later how the Philly crowd would give babyfaces hell in ECW. And of course, it was a pretty decent match, and Rotundo ended up picking up the win. But man, did the Philly crowd give the poor old Z-Man, they gave him hell throughout that match. The next match on the card, we get the Samoan SWAT team, who are Samu and Fatu, who would end up becoming the head shrinkers in the WWF. And of course, Fatu, you know him as Rikishi. And they're teaming up with the Samoan Savage with Sir Oliver Humperdinck in their corner. They're taking on a babyface Midnight Express with a babyface Jim Cornette in their corner. And they're teaming up with Dr. Death Steve Williams. Pretty decent match. The Samoan SWAT team and the Samoan Savage, they ended up picking up the win during this match. And we didn't get a lot of babyface Jim Cornette during this time. So, that's a little, side note. The next match, we get the Cuban Assassin taking on Wildfire Tommy Rich. And if you guys who have watched my channel over the years, I got plenty of videos of Tommy Wildfire Rich. But during this time in 1989, Tommy Wildfire Rich was on like a comeback trail, as he'd been gone from the NWA for a few years during this time. Pretty decent match. Tommy Wildfire Rich, he ended up picking up the win. The next match on the card, we get the World Tag Team Champions, the Fabulous Freebirds, taking on the Dynamic Dudes, Johnny Ace and Shane Douglas, with Jim Cornette in their corner. You know, not real sure about the storyline during this time. I guess Jim Cornette was managing the dudes during this time. But man, did the Philly crowd give the Dynamic Dudes hell. Of course, if you don't know who the Dynamic Dudes were, that was Johnny Ace, a.k.a. John Laurinaitis, and Shane Douglas. The Philly crowd gave him hell. But it's kind of funny how just a few years later, Shane Douglas would become like, you know, the man in ECW. But this match right here, it was a good match. But of course, the Freebirds ended up picking up the win, and they're still your World Tag Team Champions. This next match right here, it's the debut of a MASH team, Doom, who we all know would become Butch Reed and Ron Simmons. And they got Woman in their corner. They're taking on Rick and Scott, the Steiner brothers. Now, the storyline during this match, before Woman would become Woman, she was known as Robin Green, and she was like the love interest of Rick Steiner. And of course, Robin Green would end up becoming Woman, and she found herself a tag team with the Doom. And it was a pretty, you know, decent tag team match. One of the best matches on this pay-per-view, I say. But Doom ended up picking up the win. And, you know, Doom and the Steiner brothers, they would feud for a couple of months here in late 89 and early 1990. The next match, I got to say, is probably the second best match on this pay-per-view. And that's the total package Lex Luger, who was the U.S. champion, taking on one of my all-time favorites, Flying Brian Pillman. Basically, the storyline during this match, Pillman made a challenge to Luger, and that's what started their whole match for Halloween Havoc 89. Pretty decent match. Luger ends up getting the win. And as a little side note for any of you out there who remember when the WWE put out the Brian Pillman DVD, this match is actually on that DVD. So I'd seen it before. And like I say, probably about the second best match on this pay-per-view. The next match, we get the Skyscrapers, who were Sid Vicious and Dangerous Dan Spivey, along with Teddy Long, taking on the Road Warriors with Paul Ellering. Pretty good tag match. The Road Warriors ended up picking up the win by DQ. And I gotta say, the Skyscrapers, Vicious and Spivey, I feel like they're one of those tag teams that they could have been the World Tag Team Champions, but they never did. Of course, Sid Vicious would have a better singles run than Spivey did, but they were a great tag team during their little short little run in WCW. And now the main event, inside a Thunderdome cage match, we get Flair teaming up with Sting to take on Funk and Muta in the Thunderdome cage match. Pretty good match. As the cage is lowering, you know, all these like pyros going off. Well, the cage ends up catching on fire, so Muta climbs up on the cage and puts this fire out with his mist. Pretty cool scene, but pretty great tag match. I really enjoyed it. You know, I know this match right here has been featured in numerous WWE DVDs over the years, and of course Flair and Sting would end up picking up the win. But the next month later, Flair and Funk would end their feud. They would finally end it at the Clash of the Champions, the New York Knockout. Flair and Funk would have that classic I Quit match, one of my all-time favorite matches right there. But all in all, those were your match listings for Halloween Havoc. But right now, I'm going to let you guys take a look at this DVD right here. I picked this DVD up a few years back from the Kayfabe Cover Kingdom. You know, he specializes in, you know, classic wrestling pay-per-views. I'll put a link to his Instagram in the description box below. But first, let's take a look at this DVD. Alright, you guys, just letting you get a good look of this WCW Halloween Havoc 89 DVD. You know, artwork design done by the Kayfabe Cover Kingdom. You know, who knows if the WWE will ever put out any classic WCW pay-per-views individually. Who knows, maybe one day, but I don't look for it to happen anytime soon. So I highly recommend checking out the Kayfabe Cover Kingdom. Link to his Instagram page will be in the description box. But there you see the Great Muta, Ric Flair, Terry Funk, Sting. Of course, the tagline for the pay-per-view, Settling the Score. Let you guys get a good look of what it looks like on the back. Just, you get all the match listings and all that. Sorry if my shadow's in the way. Now, when I purchased this DVD, the Kayfabe Cover Kingdom was known as the Golden City Saint before he changed his name. But there's a good look at, you know, what it looks like on the back. Then you open up. There's no artwork design on the DVDs, just, you know, plain old DVDs. But really great artwork, and I highly recommend checking out the Kayfabe Cover Kingdom if you want to pick up some classic WCW pay-per-views. Alright, you guys, I hope you enjoyed checking out the DVD set of Halloween Havoc 1989. Like I said, I picked this up from the Kayfabe Cover Kingdom. I'll put a link to his Instagram in the description box below, and he specializes in DVD covers for classic wrestling pay-per-views from any promotion, from any decade. So I highly recommend checking him out. But I have a lot of memories of watching this pay-per-view right here. I remember as a kid going to my local video store and seeing that VHS tape with the Road Warriors on the front cover with the Halloween Havoc 89 logo, and just renting it a whole bunch of times. And I loved that the theme of this pay-per-view was Halloween, being scared and all that. And, you know, I just loved it, and I've just loved all the Halloween Havocs that would come out ever since. You know, of course, the Halloween Havoc pay-per-views would you know, start in 89 and go all the way up until 2000. But my favorite era for the Halloween Havoc pay-per-views, I would probably say like 89 through like 97. Those were my favorite Havoc pay-per-views. But, you know, this show right here, you know, classic, great action. You know, I'll say, you know, 1989 was one of the best years in professional wrestling. Some people might agree, disagree, but I'll say this, you know, for me, like I said, you might agree or disagree, but for me, the NWA WCW had the better talent, or the better, you know, the better storylines, the better matches during this time in 89. Now on the WWF side, you know, Hogan and Macho Man, they would have their feud in the early part of 89, and they had their match at WrestleMania 5, but also in 89, Hogan would feud with Zeus, and that whole feud they had, you know, really didn't like. But on the NWA WCW side, you had Flair, you had Funk, you had Sting, you had Great Muta, the Steiner Brothers, Doom, the Skyscrapers, the Road Warriors. I mean, they had so much great talent, and we could sit here all day and talk about what were some of the best years in wrestling. But I gotta say, 1989 was a really great year for professional wrestling. And of course, during this time, WCW was on TBS, and, you know, they had their Saturday night show and all their other shows that would come on the weekend. It was just a, you know, classic time for wrestling. But this pay-per-view right here, I highly recommend checking it out. The main event was great. Luger and Pillman was probably about the second best match. I mean, the Philly crowd, you know, they loved all the matches. You know, out of all the matches on the show, I would probably say the least favorite match was probably Tommy Wildfire Rich taking on the Cuban Assassin. But the rest of the match, man, the crowd loved it. Great action, great talent, and I highly recommend checking it out. But if I had to rate this pay-per-view on a Dave Meltzer rating system, with 5 stars being the best, I'll give this pay-per-view right here 4 stars, you know. But like I said, I highly recommend checking it out. You probably can watch it on the network. But if you want to pick up this DVD, like I said, check out the Kayfabe Cover Kingdom. But guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to give this video a like, comment, subscribe to my channel. Link to my Twitter, my Instagram in the description box below. In my next video, you guys have been asking, I'm doing my Q&A video. So stay tuned here to my channel. But guys, I'm Jammin' Music Man. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your support. And I will see you guys next time.